because in reality, there isn't a historical self and an essential self. If there was, there would be a possibility for opposition between the two, right? And that would mean that both are equally real. But it's not really so. You're just your essential self.
So one is false.
Well, yes. One is useful.
Oh, one is useful? I never
I don't know
even
if I
got
like
out.
to say false. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
to say
I didn't get out our other really good distinction, which I thought was really, really cool, because when we started talking about the historical self, then we came up with the prehistorical self.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I love that one.
Yeah, the prehistorical self. Yeah, that's the one that exists.
Mine can't touch it.
That's the one that exists. Mine can't touch that. No. Mine can't conceive of
It
a
was
prehistorical...
before the history.
Right. Right. Mine can't conceive of a prehistorical self.
And that is something that we can touch. We are touching.
That is something that we are, yeah, intimately. We know intimately, not intellectually, but through the living experience of what we are in the world.
The prehistorical self.
Yeah,
I love it.
You're a dinosaur.
I like to try to ask, it doesn't mean my watch stops ticking, right? Time, that kind of time. I mean the progression of the moment, or however the content of the moment is in movement, and that's my watch ticking. But the time we're talking about is like our remembrance of the past and our projection of the future.
Yeah, if your watch stops ticking, it's probably your battery.
It doesn't have to do with entering the essential self. Huh?
It doesn't have too much to do with that. The time that we create is actually created by thinking. That's the time that people say is an illusion. The sense of time that we get through thought. The sense of time of yesterday, and the sense of time of tomorrow, and the sense of time of right now, right? All of it is somehow being compiled, right, or concocted within this greater framework of what they call the moment, right? The moment doesn't have anything to do with like this present moment, really, right? Because the moment is in part of this series of events. The moment is always the moment. So it can't be part of the series of events. The series of events happen within the moment. And what the teachers are really pointing to is not the series of events. They're pointing to the moment. But if we look right now, right, where's time? Right? An essential encounter takes place in no time. Really, it does. Time stops. You know, like when you're in love, or you see the beloved, your heart stops. You know, really, your heart doesn't stop. Your mind stops.
Right.
You know, your thoughts stop, and there's no time. There's no time in that moment. So
time is almost like chatter. Mental chatter is time.
Time is story. You can't have time without story, because time is history, right? It's the history of what's happening right now, the history of what preceded this, and whatever's going to happen in the future.
And the projection of that history.
And the projection of that history, exactly. Right. But if we really look right now, is there time? Time needs a reference point. Time needs a before, right, and a right now. Or a before and an after, a future and a past, right? But right now, right, is there time? There really isn't any time. That's obvious. 9 million things have to be done, and you're sitting there, realizing there is no time.
Realizing the moment, right?
It reminds me of a story. It's very much an indulgence.
Oh, yeah, tell us.
It reminds me of a story of someone who was incarcerated. It's not a true story. Maybe it was, but it ended up being a story to teach a lesson. That someone was incarcerated, and they were, placed behind bars. And every day and every night they would just look and stare until someone asked, "Well, what are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm really studying the nature of these bars." And that's really what it is. It's like, take a look around, just stop and see what's the nature of the bars, because anxiety doesn't exist without time. So if you realize there isn't any time and there's no anxiety and there's no past and really no future and there's just this moment, right? And then you say, "Oh, I need to keep my little bag of anxieties, so that I feel safe.
Where are my bars?
So that I feel comfortable. I need to have my prison. I need to carry it with me. I need to have my bars. Yeah. Where are my bars? Otherwise I feel restless, So how are you going to see the pre-existing unity, right? If you're clinging and fixating on differences. So a real encounter doesn't fixate on differences at all.
Doesn't fixate. Everything's moving in a real encounter.
Yeah, everything
it was always going.
Everything's alive, yeah.
Everything's alive, and you're just in awe.
Yeah, it's really life having an encounter with itself, right? Because it's not differentiated.
God, is that different? Not fixing anything. I'm just trying to imagine how that would be. It seems like it's kind of tiring because everything you got to just keep paying attention all the time. There's nowhere you can turn off and say, "Okay, I got that one."
Right.
Right.
It takes presence.
It takes presence.
Mm-hmm. That's all.
It's kind of like you'd want to go for a half an hour or something, into like a movie house or into this presence house or a movement. Or the house of fun, You go into the house of fun,
right?
Put your $2 down and say, "Okay, only give me 20 minutes. That's all I can take."
Well, you know what? That's how it starts off in the beginning, but the capacity grows. You ever notice that people can't look eye to eye, and they get uncomfortable, right? But that capacity grows the more you do it, because the only thing that makes you uncomfortable is the activity of the mind. The mind creates a difference between me and the teacher. That's all. That difference has to be removed. And that's what I mean by suffering, is the seizing of an idea that causes disconnection, right? Because that idea that the teacher and I are different, that the teacher and I are separate, that is what is in the way. That's what's preventing the awakening or the insight. Just that idea.
That's when I started to go around and see a lot of teachers.
Because there's not a real encounter. When there's a real encounter between you and the teacher, there's no difference between you and the teacher.
Supposedly the teacher is facilitating that all the time, right? The teacher's seeing there's no difference, and then I'm seeing that there's a difference.
Right.
And somehow that him or her seeing that there's no difference somehow is supposed to rub off on me.
Right. When he sees that there's no difference, there's a transmission of a real encounter, a heart-to-heart. And when you're in a heart-to-heart, something happens that is original. And that originality of this experience right now, of this moment, who you are, this moment.
Let's try to say that again.
When there's a real encounter, there's a transmission. And the transmission is usually a transmission of what they call no mind, transmission of a heart-to-heart. Right? When I use the word heart-to-heart, I mean there's no mind.